Hey everybody, it's Mason. Welcome to another video. I hope you're doing well. This is going to be kind of a very rambling off the script, just talking about life video and where I'm kind of at with writing and reading in 2026, what my goals are, and maybe looking back a little bit on 2025. That said, like I said, this will be really rambly and stuff. In the future though, I think I might try to up my production value a little bit on some of these videos. I got a new camera recently. I'm using it now. I haven't messed with the settings or anything on it. It's like a nicer version of a webcam, so I have it hooked up right to my computer because I used to have to like use my phone on like a tripod, and it was a giant pain in the ass. And so this will make recording videos a lot easier, which I'm really excited about. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. I did not have a very good 2025, writing or reading wise. They go hand in hand for me. It's kind of, I mentioned this in some of my other videos. I think it's the ADHD a little bit. It's basically wherever my passion is, whatever is the most exciting, the most stimulating to me in my life at a present time, like that is going to consume all of my interest, all of my passion, all of my effort. And there is times where I can kind of funnel this creative energy on and latch it onto writing. And when I've had times like that, I have been insanely productive and I have been very happy with, how things go. And then there's times where that focus drifts and is on other things. And in 2025, it was all over the place. It was rarely ever on writing. And that's something that I really, really want to fix in 2026. I mean, 2025, I read like 5 books, 6 books total. I think if I guess including audiobooks in there, we go up to like 7, 8, but really not a lot of books. Not as much as I would like to, of course. As far as writing, I did a bunch of writing contests. So, I mean, at least thank God that I had those to help me, kind of stay, engaging that creative part of my brain. I did, a lot. And when I refer to contests, I'm talking about like prompt-based writing contests where you're like given prompts and you have a certain amount of time to like, write a story off of those prompts. It's a almost different skill set than to short story or novel writing. But at the same time, I still was really thankful for those to help kind of, flex my, creative muscles in that way. And having a great writing group, shout out to y'all, helped as well. It was huge to, keeping me engaged, because if not for that, I might not have done any writing, because like I said, my attention was elsewhere. And I'm not, trying to be too hard on myself. It just is what it is. I want to be a writer. And I think, as I get older, I just entered my 30s. I'm starting to realize like, damn, time really does move quickly. And, nobody is going to be here to, save me, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. Like I need to, save myself. I need to expect better of myself. And I really think that 2026 is going to be a great year. So kind of in November and December of 2025, I took a lot of measured steps to try to kind of set myself up for success in 2026. And I really feel like I achieved that. And I'm very proud of that. I basically, tried to cut away a lot of these distractions. What I've always noticed, like I said, is whatever is the most exciting thing to me at the time, like that is going to take my, attention. And I'm sorry, but like writing just cannot compete with modern day video games and, short form videos and all of these things. They're infinitely more stimulating to my little rabbit brain than writing will ever be. And so the times that I've been the most productive, that I've really been able to focus all of my attention and that creative energy onto writing, are when I've cut these extra things out of my life. And that is what I kind of did over, November and December. I basically told myself I'm only going to play video games with my wife if we want to play games together. And I pretty much have, limited myself to not, doom scrolling short form videos at all, pretty much. And so it was a great reset. And in the month of December, I started working on my novel, and I have been reading a lot more, and I have been the person that I want to be, I guess. And so that makes me really happy. And I really want to carry that energy into 2026 and keep, pushing forward with that mindset and keeping these distractions at bay the best I possibly can. Because like I said, like I really do love reading. I love writing. I love when I'm in this mindset. It's not that I don't enjoy any of that stuff. It's just that my brain wants the shortest route from, where I'm at right now to getting those little dopamine hits. And, like I said, nothing can compete with like video games and, short form media for me. And so they just got to go if I'm really going to, lock in on writing in 2026. So that's 2025. It wasn't great. Didn't do a ton of writing outside of contests. But we are heading now into a new year and I've reset and I feel a lot better genuinely. So I'm really, really excited. And along with me being more in tune with writing and thinking about writing and reading and being in this kind of writerly life, I should say, with that will probably come more videos on this channel when I have things that I'm, thinking about and want to share. Okay, so my 2026 writing goals, I'm keeping them pretty simple. My primary goal over the course of 2026 is to query my novel. I would like to be traditionally published. That's my, long-term, dream. And that's what I want to do. By the end of the year, I want to query my novel. It's going to take a lot to get that done by the end of the year. It's pretty lofty. If I were to query the novel, it would be getting sent out in the winter of 2026. So, I guess, the winter, whatever, you know what I'm saying, the end of the year, essentially, because I'm still working through my first draft. The first draft is, though I will say, like, my first drafts are pretty tight. At least I try to, like, I write very slow, but I tried to make my first drafts pretty clean. Now, of course, there'll be, revisions and edits and things that need to be cut, and there'll be a lot of work that needs done in revisions for sure. But I definitely am not like the biggest like vomit drafter. I really do like to take my time on first drafts, and so it makes subsequent drafts a little bit easier. I kind of edit as I go in some ways, and so that's really the primary thing. That's all that I want. The rest of my goals are all kind of secondary. They'd be cool. But my primary goal is to finish this novel that I'm working on and to query it. A little background on some of my novel writing. In 2019, 2020, I wrote a fantasy novel. It was the first novel I ever wrote, and it was not very good. It was really bad. And, I learned a lot through the process. It was wonderful. It, taught me that I can do it. And then over the years, I've been more focused on short stories, trying to kind of build up a resume. And then I've started several novel projects that I've got, probably 50,000, 60,000 words into first draft on, I think, like 3 different projects that I have abandoned. And so, like I said, my goal with this project is to query my novel. I do not want to abandon it. I, have kind of learned my lesson a lot with this. You get to that midpoint slump in the book, and you start to think that you're horrible and that the story sucks and that there's no way this is ever going to come together. And, I told myself whenever I start my next project, I am not going to let that happen again. And so my goal is to just finish the damn thing, and keep pressing forward. I've learned my lesson with that for sure. So that's my primary goal: query the novel, finish it, get it all cleaned up, do as many drafts as necessary. We'll see, like, feedback wise, beta reading and all that stuff. I definitely will submit it to people to, beta read. I have, a great writing group that I know will help with that. And I also have some friends at, IRL that are, know literature well, that will be a great help. I don't know about the turnaround time and all that stuff yet. This is all very nebulous. I'm not trying to plan out everything, like one step ahead. I just want to query my novel by the end of the year. And if for whatever reason the novel's done and I'm just waiting on beta reads and, we get into 2027 by then, that's perfectly fine. As long as I kind of set myself up to, have it ready to go, that would be great. Okay. And I just need to constantly remind myself that this is my primary goal, because my mind is constantly getting distracted. And, even something like this, I could be writing right now and I'm making this video, but it's fine. So some of my secondary goals, like I said, these are nice. I'm not going to be, heartbroken if they don't happen. Like I said, my main goal is querying the novel. So my secondary goals, I would like to write 3 short stories and, get them polished and edited and hopefully submit them to some literary magazines. These are short stories outside of the contests that I'm going to do, like prompt-based contests. These are just their own little stories. I would like to write 3 short stories. My other kind of secondary goal is I would like to win a writing battle. That's very, very lofty. Writing battle, if you're not familiar, I have a whole other video about it. It's like I participated in a unique writing contest or something. I put that in as the video title, but it's basically like a prompt-based contest, and they're pretty much the only contests I'm going to do this year. I really like them. They're a fun way to really stretch myself and force myself to do something different than I normally do, and I really, really have enjoyed the process and the community, and so I am going to limit the contests that I'm doing this year down to just the writing battle contests, but I'm pretty much going to do all of them. I think there's like 8 or 9 throughout the year, and I'm going to do them all. And I like to win one. I've got pretty close a couple times. I got several top 16 finishes. I got a top 8 finish. And yeah, I really would like to win one of those. It's lofty. It's very kind of up in the judges' hands, whether or not that happens, whether that's the peer judges or the pro judge battles. But anyway, I would like to win one. It'd be cool. If not, oh well. And then my last goal would be to continue living like a writer. That's really it. And, maybe that sounds a little, cheesy or pretentious, but that's really what I want to do. I really want to keep this mindset of, keeping my distractions at bay and really letting my, focus, my creative energy, my passion continue to latch on to writing and reading. That would be the big thing. Okay, cool. So those are my writing goals for 2026. Now, let's get into my reading goals for 2026. And again, I've learned in my life, I like to keep it really vague with goals. I like to keep it simple. I don't like to go crazy with, numbers and especially like picking out a bunch of specific books that I want to read. I've learned that like, it's not even worth it for me to keep a TBR list anymore because like, what the next book I want to read, it always just kind of depends on the mood I'm in at that time. And, I don't really know what mood I'm going to be in July, what sort of thing I'm going to be craving to read in August. So I'm not going to try to like plan out my whole, reading list for the year. That said, I do have some, general, ideas of some things that I want to do, a couple authors I want to try, a couple genres I need to get more into. So where to start? As far as like the amount of books I want to read, I'm not doing like a number, book goal. I just want to be making sure that I'm like reading every day. And this is part of it. Like I said, when my creative focus is latched onto writing, it's very easy to do. Every night before I go to bed, I'll read for, half an hour, 45 minutes, even an hour. And it's wonderful. Love it. And it's all good. But then, of course, if my mind is elsewhere, I won't. So I just need to, stay locked in and, keep, reading every day and staying engaged with literature. And then, however many books pile up at the end of the year that I'll read, then, it'll be what it'll be. I'm also looking forward to making like an end of year 2026 wrap up of the books that I read. I thought about doing that this year, but I didn't read enough to really feel like it would be worth the time. So that said, so here's some more of the kind of like specific things that I want to get into. This is just kind of randomly. I want to get into more poetry. I met a friend. I have the Sylvia Plath collected poems here. This isn't specifically what I want to read. I don't really know yet, but just as an example. But I have a friend that I met at a party that is a poetry editor at a literary magazine, which I was really surprised to find out because I live out here in the boondocks, and it was really nice meeting somebody that I know is involved in, that sort of scene. And I kind of had my start with writing in poetry. I would write like just stupid limericks and stuff, and I would do like slam poetry contests and stuff back in the day when I was in high school, but I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know anything about like modern poetry form and stuff like that. And this person that I met has given me a ton of really good recommendations for kind of where to start with poetry. And so I definitely want to get into more poetry, not only just to write some myself and potentially submit some to some magazines, but also just because I always want to, heighten my level of prose that is in, my longer fiction. I think that reading poetry is a great way to, enhance the beauty of your longer fiction by studying what makes poems great. Yeah. So poetry, I want to get into that in some way, shape, or form. I want to get into more, not that I like haven't ever read any of it. I have, I try to keep my fingers kind of on the pulse of what's going on in the, in the modern literary world. But it's been a while since I've read some like more modern literary fiction. And so I definitely want to. I have just a few kind of examples here from Rachel Kushner and Jennifer Egan. Like I said, more modern literary fiction. I really want to get into a little bit more of this, namely, is because I'm looking for comps for, the novel that I'm working on whenever I go to query it. And I just want to have at least a better feel for the kind of, modern day structure of, what's going on with modern literary fiction, what's working, what's not. I know neither of these books are like super new. I bought them at a used bookstore, but they've been in the last decade or so by some prominent, writers within that sphere. So I definitely just want to kind of continue to keep my, fingers on the pulse of what's going on there, especially as I get closer to trying to query a novel and, looking for comps and authors that kind of match what I'm going for. My experience with, modern literary fiction is, I like the genre. I sort of write in the genre. It's hit or miss whether I like it or not. I feel like I either love it or I hate it. I don't know why exactly that is. And so we'll see, what I think of these stories. At some point as well, I also want to get into Thomas Pynchon, just as, kind of a landmark of American fiction over the last, century. Essentially his books have been huge. Gravity's Rainbow, all of these influences. And I've never read Pynchon. And so I want to get into one of his stories at some point. I think I'm going to start with Shadow Ticket, which is his newest one, just because I own it. I got a gift card for Christmas to the bookstore, and I bought this with it. So cool. I want to get into some Thomas Pynchon at some point. Like I said, I'm keeping this very vague, very broad. There's just a couple authors I want to try, a couple genres I want to dabble with. But, like I said, it's really how I'm feeling. I have, a decent collection of books that I still want to read. And I think really when it boils down to it, when I finish whatever book I'm reading, I just kind of like to survey my bookshelf or even, go to the library and just say, what seems interesting to me now? What would I want to read now? And sometimes I also think like, what's going to help my writing right now? What am I lacking? Am I lacking some, is my dialogue not been very good? Then who's an author that's great with dialogue that I can, really dive into, stuff like that. And so it really depends. And then I have one book that I do want to read this year, a kind of tougher book, as far as like classics and literature and all of that stuff. Is I think I would finally like to tackle Moby Dick this year. We'll see if it happens. Like I said, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself with this, but I would like to at some point. Many years ago, I started it and I loved it. I thought the prose was absolutely beautiful. It was like one giant poem and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I just got confused and gave up after like 30 pages. And so I would like to dive back into this at some point. And so that's kind of one of my bigger goals this year is to read Moby Dick. We'll see if it happens. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but that's really it. That is the rough outline of my goals for 2026. I want to continue, being in this readerly mindset. I want to finish my novel and I want to read a lot more, to enjoy myself not only, and then of course, hopefully become a better writer along the way as well. So for any of you that stuck around this long, sorry for all the rambling. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I really don't have anything else to add, and I've butchered this ending enough so far. The ship is not going to be landed well. We can already tell. And have a good one. Thanks, y'all. Bye.